Shooting Complex. Take a listen.
Identify what's needed for safety purposes and to meet the health requirements for our staff. And so we've been doing a number of trainings, policies. We've had carpenters out at the site to be working on the roof, and then today you can see the heavy equipment's coming in and they're working on the backstop improvements. We're anticipating this is going to take several more weeks to complete. We're going through the training this week with our employees, and we're being joined by HPD and also the Department of Public Safety. So we will be meeting all of the OSHA and regulatory requirements. We're completing signage to go into the site to update instructions to the general public that's going to be using it. And we're going to have our staff will be ready to train any new contract workers as they come on site. And I think after we open, we will be finalizing some additional tests that need to be done to do an initial determination, again, to make sure that we're meeting the regulatory requirements for the range. At that point, we will be back in business. So be happy to take any questions that people may have.
Do you have a date for when the range will reopen?
Part of that is going to depend on the construction work that you see behind me, weather permitting. If we have heavy rains or things that will shut down being able to move that amount of dirt onto the berms because the dirt gets kind of sticky. But we are hoping to be able to open the range sometime in March.
Actually, follow-up question, is that for the entire range or certain sections of the range?
Thank you for the question. I appreciate that. So that would be for certain sections of the range. We'll probably be phasing in a reopening. So the Department of Parks and Recreation is working on the pistol and the rifle ranges, which are the two ranges used by the general public. HPD is working on their action ranges. We have been, the expert that we hired has identified additional work that needs to be done on the Department of Public Safety range. So we've been in communication with them, and they would take the lead on those improvements. And then the skeet, trap, and silhouette ranges that are used by clubs also have certain requirements that need to be met before they could be reopened. And so we'll be meeting with those groups later this month.
When you're saying additional requirements in order to be reopened, can you be more specific? What's happening at those specific ranges? Why is it taking longer to open?
Some of the physical changes that need to be done on the silhouette range involve some backstop work there, possibly some regrading and changing of some of the targets in order to meet the safety requirements. And then on the skeet and trap shooting, we have to take a look at some of the ballistics, the arcs of the bullets that they're using, and then probably change to non-lead bullets because you're not really going to be able to reclaim the bullets from those shot that you would in a backstop.
Go a little bit more into the safety. You kind of touched on it at the end there. You were saying that some has to do with actual safety in terms of shooting the weapon, and the other has to do with lead. Specifically, what areas need what work?
So if you look behind me and you see the work that's being done on the backstops, that's placing clean screened fill on the backstops to, as those backstops erode over time, it exposes material inside the backstop that may cause ricochets, and then it loses the height. And so what you need on the backstops is an average of 20-foot height of clean fill, so that any shot that goes from a gun would and through a target would end up being embedded in the backstop. That's for the safety, reducing ricochets, but also to allow you to reclaim the lead on a periodic basis to keep the area clean.
Talk about the testing that's been done at this site.
Mm-hmm. So what we've been doing, in part why it's taken us a while to get the work done, is we are required to do air monitor testing to see whether any of the work at the site is generating any lead in the air that's possible for people to be breathing in. So the workers are equipped with a personal air monitoring device, and that's the monitoring is being done by an environmental consultant expert. So the air monitoring that we've done to date during power washing and some of the light carpentry work has shown that there is zero lead in the air. We will continue to do air monitoring today for the people doing the heavy equipment work, and after 2 days of test, if it shows that there's no lead in the air, then they would not have to continue wearing the personal protective devices. And we'll do air monitoring for the grounds maintenance.
Besides the work that we're seeing here today, what other work and what other testing has happened since September?
As I said, we were doing some testing for the carpentry and the painting and general maintenance, and then we'll continue to do testing for the grounds maintenance, for the mowing and the weed whacking. And I think at that point that will be covering everything.
And is that lead testing? What kind of testing is
Again, it's the air monitoring testing, because under the OSHA regulations, what they're determining is whether the activities creates lead in the air where it's possible to breathe it in.
And then has there been any soil testing?
There's testing that you do. Because this is a designated use for a range, you are allowed to have lead on site. If the city ever stopped using it as a range, we would have to remove lead from the site. But because it's a designated shooting range, it's allowed to have lead on site, it's expected to have lead on site. We do need to have a plan for periodic removal of the lead. So one of the things the expert did was to examine the backstops to determine whether there was enough lead in them to require removal, and he said that there was not. But that's why we held off on the berm backstop restoration project, as we didn't want to bury lead if we needed to remove it. We are putting in money for a capital improvement project in our budget request to the council this year, and we would be planning for some remediation work, and probably we anticipate in another few years we would need to do a backstop remediation where you screen and remove the lead from the backstop and then rebuild it.
You had mentioned training earlier for staff and new signage. What does that entail specifically?
So the training is done under the OSHA requirements for worker safety, because this is a workplace that does have lead, and it also has loud noise and ballistics. OSHA requires eye protection, ear protection, and then there's steps that the expert has shared with us about for lead protection. Outdoor shooting ranges do not raise the same concern about lead in the air as an indoor shooting range, but we still would want to make sure that we're washing down benches on a regular basis, power washing once a year, that we don't have eating and drinking, in the area. Because there's a potential, if you've been touching a surface with lead and then ingesting it, would be a problem. So some of the signage will be no eating and drinking once you cross the firing line to come into the building, and that would apply to our staff as well as to the general public.
And then any update on staff? Are their lead levels back to normal? And if not, who is going to work the range when it reopens in March?
Okay, so all of the staff, the lead levels that they had, none of them were above the action level under OSHA that required removal. So all of their lead levels were fine for work purposes. But because we didn't know whether any of them had any underlying health conditions, out of an abundance of caution, we pulled them out and recommended that they see their personal physician. We've offered follow-up testing for every employee, and they are all able to come back to work, and our understanding is that they're interested in coming back to work.
How many people are impacted?
So we have 2 full-time employees and 10 contract employees.
And as far as the ranges opening up, sorry to come back to that, but which ones will be opening first?
We expect that we would be able to open the pistol range, the rifle range first out of the public ranges, and that HPD is moving expeditiously on the improvements they need to make, and they're joining us for the training. So we expect that they would be able to open the action range. In talking with the Department of Public Safety, the range that they're using, they have their listing of what needs to be done prior to reopening, so they're going to be working. I don't have a schedule from them at this point. And then, as I said, we need to meet with the shooting clubs to talk with them about the changes.
And to revisit the question about lead levels, have their lead levels returned, the employees' lead levels returned to the normal range, or is it still slightly elevated?
I don't have the results because that's their personal medical information, and so that's not been shared with me, but my understanding is that it's gone down. And then when we adopt the policies, when they do return, for some gloves, equipment, and washing their hands and not eating and drinking on the site, we anticipate that they'll remain low.
Does the city plan to do follow-up testing with these employees to make sure that nothing changes?
Yeah, we will be offering follow-up testing.
And then did Kramer 1 visit the site in December?
We've had Kramer 1 has come out now twice. So we had the range safety expert Lauren Kramer came and did a multi-day site visit in December. And now his partner Jack, who does the training on the OSHA safety requirements, is in town for 4 days. And he had his walkthrough today, met with us, the law enforcement trainers, and then he'll be doing training for 2 days for all of our staff that work on the range for the different state and county agencies. And then we're going to have a day where he observes the DPR staff and the HPD staff do a mock training, just to kind of embed the training materials in their mind, because they're going to be responsible for training new staff in the future.
And then you said this is the first day any physical work has actually been done out here.
No. This is the first day of the heavy equipment work that you're seeing behind me right now with the backstop remediation. We've had carpenters out here. We've done some power washing and cleaning. And we've also had some contractors come in and take a look at some other work that we have to do. One big change that was not expected initially is the wall that is in between the pistol and the rifle range. It's degrading pretty rapidly right now, so we're going to have to cut down that wall for safety purposes. That will require us to operate the pistol and the rifle range as a single range until we're able to go through a construction project to replace the wall.
How much are all these improvements expected to cost?
We have some ARPA funds for the backstop remediation. That's the federal COVID relief money that we had put in a grant for that. And I'm trying to remember, I have to get the costs from that because there were certain things that changed during the process. And then we're going to have to tally up some of the other costs that we've had, like the testing for the consultant contracts, and I don't have those dollar figures at this point.
Where has the HPD been doing their action shooting, or where have they been doing it since you closed?
I think you'd have to talk with them, but in just general conversation, I think the different law enforcements have found a variety of some options, possibly working with the military. I think there's a range out at Kualoa Ranch, and then there's some indoor facilities.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
There's law enforcement has available to them some indoor facilities, and I think they've also been working with the military on some things.
And then I heard that HIOS did issue the city and county some citations regarding the range. Can you comment on those?
Yeah, so HIOSH, the Occupational Safe and Healthy Health Administration, we did meet with them. We shared with them the policies that we had already in place prior to what happened recently. They felt good about that. They felt good about the contract that we had with Kramer 1. They did give us a small citation and have asked us to come up with a hazard abatement plan and some other things, which is under our contract with Kramer 1. So we have a draft together for that, and we're finalizing it now. We're getting input from the Department of Human Resources safety, worker safety section as well.
What was the citation specifically for?
I'd have to go back, but I think it's relating to one of the hazard policy, but I'd have to go back and double check. But we were in the process of putting that together with Kramer 1, and we have a draft at this point.
And when you say hazard policy, what does that mean?
It's just something to note the hazards on the work site. And so what are the mitigation measures that you have to do? So for example, since you're working at a shooting range with a loud noise, you have to wear hearing protection, you have to wear eye protection, and then if you're cleaning areas where there might be lead dust, to have gloves and wash your hands afterwards.
So kind of lack of training and lack of signage, would that?
I think I wouldn't say lack of training and lack of signage, because a lot of these operations we were doing, it was one of the policies that we were missing in writing, but we were doing a lot of this work already. Everybody was wearing the hearing and the eye protection. We need to set up the hand wash or use the wipes for that.
And are you certain after this construction and this whole project that the range won't be closed anytime soon?
That is our goal. Is what we'd like to do is to fix things right and get it done so that we don't have to worry about a closure at any time in the near future. We are putting, as I mentioned, in money for a capital improvement project. We've told the law enforcement community that's working in the area we would like to do the design work with them, with the understanding that if there's improvements that they want to their sections of the range, that they would pay for those improvements. So there may be some changes that get done down the line when a capital improvement project goes forward, like building the new wall between the pistol and rifle range, that would require a closure. But what we'd want to do is to get the design done, which is going to take probably a year, and then permitting, because this is conservation district and a special district, will be fairly extensive environmental review and community input and comment. So that would probably take another year or two. So we would be looking at easily 5 years out before any type of construction began.
Okay, and just so I understand, so the wall right there is the wall that you're talking about that's degrading?
Yeah, you can actually see the
Yeah.
closer towards us, you can see kind of a horizontal line.
Yeah.
And that's where the wall, the lower portion of the wall has sunk down, and the upper portion has actually now separated, and it's kind of overhanging a little bit towards the rifle range. So that's where we're going to be cutting it back all the way back to the front, taking that down.
And that will happen later down the line after?
No, that's going to happen as part of this work that you're seeing done behind me now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a timeline?
For this current work, again, our hope.
Reopen.
Yeah, our hope is, I would like to say end of March, but probably, just weather permitting and other things that may come in, it could go into April. But we're trying to get this done as quickly as we can.
Are you going to update your website to say that? Because a lot of people think because of what's said on the website, closing through February, we're getting a lot of calls saying, well, is it going to reopen?
We're waiting on some bids from some of the contractors who are going to be doing that work, and then when we can get their schedules and their bids, we certainly will be updating it. We don't want to update it and mislead people and give a firm date, but again, we're just trying to get the work done as quickly as we can.
You also mentioned something about types of ammunition. You have to do a change of ammunition, non-lead. What are the options?
I think the one area that the range expert discussed was the skeet and trap shooting, because that shooting goes up in the air. All the other shot in an outdoor range, it's designed where you would shoot through the target and the bullet would end up in the backstop. So the EPA requires ranges to have plans to periodically clear out the lead, and so you would go to the backstop and clear the lead out. The problem with the skeet and trap is you're shooting up, you're not shooting into a backstop. And so you can't really reclaim lead when it's kind of all over there. And so one of the solutions is to use lead-free bullets.
Is there such a thing?
Yes. I did not know this until we hired the expert, but now I know more than I care to know about outdoor shooting ranges.
Speaking of outdoor shooting ranges, is the city worried, your Parks Department worried about gentlemen like the person out in Waianae that was setting up their own firing range for on private property? Do you folks worry about that happening around the island? Just other people doing that? I know DPP was handling that individual, but does the Parks Department have any comment about that?
I would refer you to DPP and the police departments that are responsible for that, but because I don't know what the zoning is or what's allowed or not allowed. But we just want to make sure that the improvements that we do here are safe. That we have a range that the public is safe to come into, and it's safe for our workers as well. So that's what we want to get finished.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And that was a live news conference with Honolulu Parks Director Laura Thielen. Bringing this all together, again, Emily Cristobal, what did we learn in that press conference?
Yeah, so the main takeaway is that this shooting range will be open sometime March. She did mention that it could be the end of March as well. It really just depends on the construction, on weather permitting. So they're really hoping to get it open as soon as possible, but the latest that they said that, or the soonest that it could be, is this next month. And just some background on this. So, Koko Head is Oahu's only public shooting range, and the range has been closed since September because of lead contamination concerns. An investigation is also underway following confirmation that multiple workers at the range tested positive for elevated lead levels in their blood. So, they're working on a bunch of things, looking at different ways to make this facility safer for the public to bring them back. And some of the requirements that they're working on are these backstop work, target changes, and in some cases for like the skeet shooting, they're looking at the possibility of maybe changing lead bullets into something that's non-lead. So they're also putting up signage around the facility, and that includes signs saying the importance of eye protection, ear protection, and making sure that they wash down benches regularly and they do a yearly power wash is what she also mentioned. And making sure that lead doesn't get into these people who are using the shooting range. So also making sure there's no eating or drinking near the range to make sure that that lead contamination is not happening.
Once again, this is all coming in light of a report that our Allison Blair filed late last year about elevated lead levels in the blood of these workers here. And so that kind of set off some alarms here, and that led the city to take a closer look at the soil there and the possible contamination. It's also key to note that during all of this reconstruction work, the city says they are conducting air monitor testing, and so far they have found zero cause for concern in the air. The monitoring is being handled by professionals, and they're keeping a very close eye to make sure that everyone stays safe out there. So once again, they are looking to reopen this hopefully by the tail end of March.
Yes.
And so gun enthusiasts there might have that space back up and running for them. That's going to do it for us for this See It Now stream here in the H&N Digital Center. I'm Dylan Ancheta alongside Emily Cristobal. Look for a full recap of this story on your H&N digital platforms.